My name is Adrian. I'm 29, and my wedding day nearly fell apart the moment my father chose my sister over me. That sentence still tastes bitter on my tongue, like a truth I never wanted to admit out loud. He had promised, after years of distance and awkward phone calls, that he would be there, that he would walk me down the aisle, that this one day belonged to us. Growing up in Allentown, Pennsylvania, I used to believe my family was a postcard. A white picket fence, tulips my mother planted every spring, a dad in crisp suits who made time for breakfast pep talks, a big sister whose shadow felt like a cool patch of grass to rest in. Then, life did what life does when you least expect it. Tore the picture down the middle. Mom's diagnosis came when I was 12. Pancreatic cancer is a thief. It stole her body first, then the sound of her humming in the kitchen, then the warmth that made our house a home. Dad, Richard, retreated into long hours and tidy spreadsheets. Grief, for him, looked like late nights at the office and an extra cup of black coffee. Vanessa, 3 years older, tall, athletic, always camera ready, slid into the space Mom left behind with a determined smile and a ledger of who owed what to whom. She cooked dinners that tasted like obligation, spoke for Dad on calls I couldn't reach him for, and perfected the art of the whisper. Dad, Adrian said not to worry about the concert, or she doesn't want to make a big deal about the awards night. Every secret she fed him bloomed into distance between us. My easel became my refuge. I painted after school, color storms of cobalt and gold, memories of my mother's smile tucked in the corner of a canvas like a signature she forgot to sign. When I won an art scholarship nomination junior year, I spent weeks reminding Dad of the ceremony date, rehearsing his proud smile in my head. The night before, I heard Vanessa on the phone, voice dipped in honey. "Should be nervous if you came, Dad. Let's send flowers. She'll prefer that." I stood on that stage the next day, clapping for myself, while other kids' parents cried in the front row. Dad texted a thumbs up emoji and said a client meeting ran late. After that, I learned to love my victories quietly. I fled to college in Pittsburgh the moment the acceptance letter arrived. On campus, I met Benjamin. Kind eyes, engineering mind, a laugh that felt like a porch light left on for me. His family wrapped me into their Sunday dinners without asking for a resume. Laura, his mother, noticed the way I straightened my back after every holiday call with Dad and slid an extra slice of pie onto my plate. "You're safe here," she seemed to say without words. I graduated into a marketing career in Philadelphia. Ben joined an engineering consultancy a few blocks away. We built a life together out of thrifted furniture and Friday night takeout, small joy stitched into something sturdy. Dad called monthly to review surface-level updates, weather, rent prices, traffic on I-476. Vanessa, now in real estate, curated a life that looked perfect on social media. Polished open houses, champagne flutes balanced on manicures, captions about grind culture and secure the bag. The only thing she couldn't stage manage was the knot that tightened in my stomach every time she spoke for my father. On our 5th anniversary, under the soft glow of an Italian restaurant I loved, Benjamin slid a velvet box toward me. The ring wasn't brash, it was thoughtful. A vintage sapphire surrounded by whispers of diamonds, a small rebellion against trends. "Will you marry me?" he asked, the whole room falling away so it was just us and the promise we'd been building for years. I said yes through tears. We walked home hand in hand, a private victory parade down streets that had watched us grow up together. I called Dad the next morning. He paused to stretch too long before saying congratulations in the tone he used when his team hit quarterly targets. "Have you set a date?" he asked, as if we were booking a dentist appointment. Vanessa's text pinged a minute later. "OMG, congrats, sis. So pretty." So many exclamation points. It read like a shout through clenched teeth. We picked June 15th at a historic hotel in Philadelphia. A garden terrace for vows, a ballroom that sounded like music even when empty. I mailed save the dates 8 months out. Dad said he'd block the day, and when I asked him to walk me down the aisle, a softness cracked his voice. I'd be honored, he said, and for a beat, the world felt right. Planning buzzed around me like friendly bees. Dress fittings with lace that felt like spun sugar. Tastings where I pretended to be an expert on fondant. And calls with our photographer about light and laughter. Laura came to appointments, eyes shining at each. 2 weeks before the wedding, my hope finally shattered. I was at the dining table, cross-checking seating charts against dietary restrictions, when my phone rang. Dad's name glowed on the screen, and for a brief second, I let myself imagine he was calling to reassure me. Adrian, he began, his tone stiff. I've been looking at the logistics for June 15th, and I don't think I can make it to the ceremony on time. Vanessa's event is crucial for her career, and as her father, I need to be there. The timing just doesn't work out. My hand froze over the pencil. You're choosing not to walk me down the aisle? I asked, my voice trembling. He sighed, as if I were being unreasonable. It's not about choosing, it's about practicality. Maybe Benjamin's father can walk you, or a family friend. The important thing is you'll be getting married, right? I barely whispered, I see, before ending the call. The chair screeched against the floor as I stumbled away from the table, my chest heaving. When Benjamin came home an hour later, he found me curled on the rug, cheeks wet, phone still lying on the ground. I could only choke out, "He's not coming. He picked Vanessa's party." Benjamin's jaw tightened, his arms wrapping around me with the fierceness that both comforted and hurt. "He doesn't deserve you," he whispered. That night in bed, he suggested postponing. We could move the date, give him no excuse. But something inside me sparked in defiance. "No," I said, surprising myself with the strength in my tone. "If I change our wedding for Vanessa's manipulations, she wins. I won't let her steal this too." The following days passed in a haze. I plastered on smiles for vendor meetings, but inside, I carried the weight of betrayal. Then a lifeline appeared. Laura, Benjamin's mother, called one afternoon, her voice thick with concern. I ended up spilling everything: the phone call, the broken promise, the ache of imagining myself walking alone. Laura listened quietly, then said with conviction, "Adrian, your father is making a choice he will regret for the rest of his life, but that is his burden, not yours. This day is about you and Benjamin. You deserve joy." Her certainty was like scaffolding around my crumbling resolve. Still, the question gnawed at me. Who would walk me down the aisle? For as long as I could remember, that moment had been a dream stitched together from movies, magazines, and my own longing for approval. To imagine walking alone felt like a cruel spotlight on my father's absence. The answer arrived unexpectedly, from someone who had been showing up all along. A few evenings later, my phone buzzed. It was Jack, Benjamin's uncle, the retired professor with kind eyes and a voice like a steady river. "Benjamin told me what happened," he said gently. "I hope you don't mind him sharing." "Of course not," I said, my throat tightening. "Family disappointments cut deep," Jack continued, pausing as if choosing his words carefully. "My own father skipped my graduation because he didn't approve of my degree in literature. It took me years to accept that his absence was about his failings, not mine." His story struck a chord in me, the old ache of being overlooked easing slightly at the recognition in his voice. "Thank you for understanding." "Anytime, Adrian. Remember, family isn't just blood. It's the people who show up." His words lingered long after the call ended. That night, sleep brought no rest, only dreams of empty aisles and the echo of Vanessa's triumphant smirk. But by morning, a thought had taken root, fragile yet persistent.
maybe walking alone wasn't my only option. Maybe someone else, someone who had already shown me more kindness than my father in years, could step into that role. I wasn't sure yet if I had the courage to ask, but for the first time in weeks, I felt the faint glimmer of possibility.
A week before the wedding, the tension inside me hit its breaking point. The florist sent final photos of the bouquets, the photographer emailed a cheerful checklist, and yet all I could see was the hollow space where my father should have been. That night, I found myself on the cold tile of our bathroom floor, knees pulled to my chest, tears refusing to stop. The reality of walking down the aisle alone pressed against me like a physical weight. The next morning, Benjamin suggested lunch with his mother. "She wants to see you," he said softly. "I think it will help." Laura was already waiting at a cafe table, sunlight slanting across her face. When I sat down, she reached across immediately, wrapping her warm hands around mine. "Sweetheart, Benjamin told me what's going on. You don't have to be strong for me. This is cruel, and it's okay to admit you're hurting." Her compassion cracked something in me. Words poured out. My fears, the years of Vanessa's sabotage, the ache of my father's casual rejection. Laura listened, her brown eyes steady and kind. When I finally ran out of words, she said, "Adrian, what your father is doing is wrong. You deserve someone walking beside you who actually celebrates your happiness, not someone who treats it like an inconvenience." We ordered salads we barely touched. After a long pause, Laura spoke again, carefully. "There's something you don't know about Jack." My head lifted. "What about him?" "When Henry and I married, my own father refused to attend. He thought it was shameful because I'd been married once before. He said it would embarrass him. On the morning of my wedding, I thought I'd have to walk myself down the aisle." Her voice softened, tinged with memory. Jack stepped in. He told me, "Laura, you deserve to be given away by someone who loves you, not someone who judges you." He walked me down the aisle that day, and it meant everything. I blinked, stunned. Jack had carried her when her own father wouldn't, the same way he had quietly carried me in smaller ways since I joined their family. "I never knew," I whispered. Laura smiled gently. "Jack doesn't talk about it, but I thought you should know because, well, you might be facing something similar." The implication hung in the air. I swallowed hard. "Do you think it would be wrong to ask him?" "Oh, Adrian," she said, squeezing my hand, "I think it would mean the world to him. But it has to be your choice, no pressure." That night, I lay awake turning the idea over and over. Jack had always shown up, at birthdays, graduations, even random Sunday dinners. He remembered details, listened with care, never made me feel like a burden. The thought of him at my side steadied me. Still, asking felt daunting. Would it burden him? Would it look like rejection of my father? The next morning, I decided to find out. I texted Jack, "Can we meet for coffee? Just the two of us." He replied within minutes, "Of course. Tomorrow?" We met at a bookstore cafe near his apartment. He was already there, a neat stack of books beside him, and 2 coffees on the table. "He took the liberty," he said with a smile. "Vanilla latte with an extra shot, right?" My throat tightened at the thoughtfulness. After small talk about his latest reads, I finally gathered courage. "Jack, there's something I need to ask you." He set his cup down, giving me full attention. "Anything." "My father isn't walking me down the aisle. He's chosen to spend the day at Vanessa's party instead." The words burned even as I said them. Jack's face shifted with sorrow. "I'm sorry, Adrian. No one deserves that." I took a breath. "Laura told me what you did for her wedding, and I was wondering, would you consider walking me down the aisle?" His eyes widened, then glistened with emotion. For a long moment, he couldn't speak. Finally, in a voice thick with feeling, he said,
Adrian, I can't tell you what this means to me. I would be honored, truly honored. Relief and gratitude washed over me, almost dizzying. You've shown up for me more than my father has in years. I'd be proud to have you at my side. He reached across, taking my hand. Then I accept with all my heart. And Adrian, don't ever think of me as a replacement. Think of me as someone who chose to be there. As I left the cafe, clutching his words to my chest, the hollow space inside me no longer felt quite so empty. The days leading up to the wedding blurred into a storm of checklists and emotions. I confirmed menus with the caterer, reviewed timelines with the photographer, and picked up welcome bags for out-of-town guests. From the outside, it all looked seamless. Inside, though, I carried the weight of a father's rejection, balanced only by the surprising comfort of Jack's promise. 3 days before the ceremony, I decided to call my dad one last time. Hope had a way of clinging, even when it shouldn't. He answered quickly, his voice distracted, as though he were half reading emails. "Dad, I just wanted to confirm, are you still planning to come to the reception?" "Yes, I should make it after Vanessa's event," he said matter-of-factly. "Probably 7 or 7:30, depending on traffic." His casual tone stung, as if missing my ceremony was no more significant than being late for a business lunch. I forced my voice to stay steady. "I also wanted you to know I've asked Benjamin's Uncle Jack to walk me down the aisle." Silence stretched on the line. When he finally spoke, his tone was unreadable. "I see. Well, someone has to do it if I can't be there." I hung up, tears burning hot. His indifference confirmed I'd made the right choice. The rehearsal dinner the night before the wedding was held at a small Italian restaurant near our venue. Jack attended, looking sharp in a charcoal suit, his presence calm and reassuring. Midway through dinner, he rose for a toast. "To Adrian and Benjamin," he said, his voice carrying over the clink of glasses. "Love isn't only about finding the right person, it's about creating a family of choice, people who celebrate you for who you are. Adrian, it is my honor to stand beside you tomorrow." His words brought tears to my bridesmaid's eyes, and I felt my chest loosen with gratitude. Later that night, back in my hotel room, I made the mistake of scrolling through social media. Vanessa had posted pictures from her career celebration. 12 people in her apartment, balloons taped to the wall, plastic cups filled with cheap champagne. It was no corporate gala. It was a lie, a petty sabotage dressed up as success. Strangely, the discovery didn't shatter me. Instead, clarity swept in like a tide pulling the sand clean. This was who she was: jealous, manipulative, incapable of joy for anyone but herself. I shut off my phone and placed it face down, determined not to let her ruin what was about to be the happiest day of my life. Morning dawned bright and golden. My bridesmaids arrived armed with coffee and pastries, chattering excitedly as the stylist unpacked curling irons and makeup palettes. The suite buzzed with energy. Yet, even as I laughed with them, my phone buzzed with a text from Dad. "Good luck today. Vanessa's event starts at 11. If it wraps early, I'll try to make it to the reception by 8. Save me some cake." My throat tightened. No apology, no pride, just a reminder that my sister's party still outranked my vows. I showed the message to Zoe, my maid of honor. She shook her head, muttering, "He doesn't deserve to be part of this day." Around noon, a knock at the door startled us. Jack stood there in his tuxedo, holding a small box. "I hope I'm not intruding," he said warmly. "I just wanted to bring Adrian something." Inside the box was a delicate lace handkerchief embroidered with tiny blue flowers. "It belonged to my mother," he explained. "She carried it on her wedding day in 1930. I thought you might want it as you're something old and something blue." My vision blurred with tears. "Jack, this is beautiful. Thank you." He smiled, his eyes gentle. "You deserve every tradition honored, Adrian. Don't let anyone make you feel otherwise." He left soon after, but his gift lingered like an anchor in my hands. By 3 o'clock, dressed in my lace gown, with Laura's silver bracelet around my wrist and Jack's handkerchief tucked into my bouquet, I felt transformed. The photographer snapped candid shots of laughter, lipstick touch ups, final hugs. Then it was time. Downstairs, the garden terrace was bathed in sunlight, the floral arch glowing against a clear sky. Guests filled the rows of white chairs, a low hum of conversation blending with the string quartet's music. In a side room, Jack waited, standing tall and steady. When he turned to see me, pride softened his features. "Are you ready?" he asked. My throat closed, but I managed a nod. I slipped my arm through his, and together we walked to the doors. The first notes of Canon in D swelled. The doors opened, and as I stepped forward with Jack at my side, the grief of my father's absence dimmed in the glow of Benjamin's smile waiting for me at the altar.
The doors opened to the garden terrace, and suddenly the world hushed. The music swelled, sunlight spilled across the rows of white chairs, and every face turned toward me. But I saw only Benjamin. His eyes widened, his lips parting in awe, and in that moment, the ache of my father's absence was replaced with the fierce certainty of belonging. Jack's arm was steady beneath mine, his presence grounding me. Step by step, I moved forward, the hem of my gown whispering against the aisle runner. Guests leaned closer, phones lifting, but I hardly noticed. All I felt was Jack's quiet pride beside me and Benjamin's unwavering love ahead. At the altar, Jack pressed my hand into Benjamin's, his eyes shining with unshed tears. "Take care of her," he said softly, though the microphone caught it enough for guests to hear. Benjamin smiled. "Always." The ceremony unfolded like a dream woven from hope and defiance. We exchanged vows we had written ourselves. Mine trembled at first, but grew stronger as I spoke. I promised to choose you every day, to honor your dreams as my own, to build a life of laughter, courage, and love. Benjamin's voice was steady, warm. "I promise to hold you when the world feels heavy, to celebrate every triumph, to stand beside you no matter what storms may come." When the officiant pronounced us husband and wife, the applause rose like a wave, and we kissed, sealing more than just a promise. It felt like reclaiming my story. During cocktail hour, laughter filled the air. Waiters moved through clusters of guests with trays of sparkling drinks and hors d'oeuvres. My bridesmaids gushed over my dress, my college friends told stories that made Benjamin blush, and Laura dabbed at her eyes every time she looked at us. Jack, ever humble, slipped quietly to the edges, but guests sought him out, praising the heartfelt toast he had given at rehearsal dinner. I noticed the way people treated him, with warmth, with respect, as though they instinctively understood the role he had stepped into. Dinner followed, in the ballroom, a vision of gold accents and soft candlelight. Benjamin's father, Henry, gave the first toast, his dry humor, coaxing laughter before his voice caught with emotion. "Adrian, your family, not just in name but in spirit, welcome home." Jack's toast followed. He raised his glass, his words steady but brimming with feeling. "To Adrian and Benjamin, thank you for reminding us that love is both ordinary and extraordinary, that it is built in everyday kindnesses and celebrated in grand moments like this. I may not be Adrian's father, but it was the greatest honor of my life to walk beside her today." The room erupted in applause, and I felt my throat tighten with gratitude. After dinner came the first dance. Benjamin and I swayed beneath twinkling lights, our song wrapping around us like a secret. When the chorus hit, he whispered, "This is our forever," and kissed me softly, laughter bubbling against my lips. The reception blurred into snapshots of joy, Zoe catching the bouquet with a triumphant shriek, Benjamin's younger brother pulling ridiculous dance moves, and Laura leading a conga line that had even Henry laughing. Yet beneath the joy, I felt a shadow. The empty chair meant for my father, the unanswered silence of his absence. By 8:30, I knew he wasn't coming.
I tried to shake it off, losing myself in music and cake cutting, but disappointment lingered like a bruise. Then, just after 9, I noticed my cousin Thomas slipping into the ballroom. He looked flustered, his tie loosened as though he'd rushed. I hugged him, grateful he had come. "I'm sorry I'm late," he said, his voice low. "I went to Vanessa's event first. Adrian, you need to know, it wasn't what she told you." My stomach clenched. "What do you mean?" He leaned closer. "It wasn't a work celebration, just a handful of friends in her apartment. No company reps, no recognition, and—" He hesitated, pulling out his phone. "She's been lying to your dad. I have the texts. She admitted she planned the party on your wedding day to force him to choose. She told him you didn't really want him there." The words hit like a punch. Proof. After years of suspicion, here was evidence of Vanessa's manipulation. Anger and vindication tangled inside me, but before I could respond, Thomas squeezed my arm. "I'm sorry, I should have said something sooner." I hugged him tightly. "Thank you for telling me. At least now I know the truth." As we pulled apart, I caught sight of Benjamin across the room, his smile radiant as he laughed with a group of friends. In that moment, I made a choice. I would not let Vanessa's lies define this day. I would not let my father's absence eclipse the love filling this room. Tonight was ours, mine and Benjamin's. And for the first time since the drama began, I felt free.
The reception was still alive with music and chatter when the ballroom doors opened again. I looked up from the dance floor and froze. My father stood there in the doorway, tall as ever but looking strangely unsettled, his tie slightly crooked, his expression uncertain. For a heartbeat, I didn't know whether to run to him or turn away. He spotted me almost instantly and started toward me, weaving past guests with a stiff smile plastered on his face. Benjamin noticed too. He leaned down and whispered, "Do you want me to get Jack?" I shook my head. "No, I need to handle this." When Dad reached me, he held out a small gift bag and gave me the kind of hug you might give a stranger at a work event. "Congratulations," he said awkwardly. "Sorry I'm late. Vanessa's thing went longer than I expected." His words cut sharper than any knife. "I'm glad you could make it for the last hour of my reception," I replied, forcing a smile that didn't reach my eyes. He glanced around, nodding at the decorations, the half-empty tables, the remnants of cake. "Looks like it was a nice wedding." "It was beautiful." I wanted to scream. "It was perfect, even without you." Instead, I just nodded and set the gift bag aside. We walked together to the bar where he ordered a scotch, sipping it as if nothing unusual had happened. Then he asked the question I had been dreading. "So, who ended up walking you down the aisle?" "Jack Harris," I said evenly. "Benjamin's uncle." His brows knit together. "The older gentleman in the navy tuxedo, the one who gave that toast?" I nodded. "Yes." "You let a stranger walk you down the aisle?" His tone was incredulous, almost accusing. The fragile thread of patience inside me snapped. "He's not a stranger, Dad. He's been there for me since I joined Benjamin's family. He's shown more interest in my life than you have in the last decade." My father's face flushed. "That's not fair. I've always supported you." "Supported me?" I shot back, my voice trembling. "You missed my art scholarship ceremony because Vanessa told you I didn't want you there. You forgot my college graduation dinner until Benjamin's parents reminded you. And now you skipped my wedding ceremony for Vanessa's party." His glass hit the bar with a thud. That party was important. She was celebrating her promotion. "It wasn't a promotion," I snapped, my voice rising enough that nearby guests turned to look. Just then, Thomas approached, his face pale but determined. "Uncle Richard, Adrian's telling the truth. Vanessa lied. The party wasn't for her job. It was just a small get-together at her apartment.
I asked one of her coworkers. They didn't even know about it. My father blinked, shaking his head as if trying to make sense of it. That can't be. Vanessa told me. Thomas pulled out his phone and showed him the messages. Vanessa bragging about scheduling the party deliberately to conflict with my wedding. As Dad scrolled, his face drained of color. This isn't real. He wouldn't do this. She has been doing it for years, I said, my voice breaking. She's been driving a wedge between us since Mom died, and you believed her every time. My father's shoulders sagged, his hands gripping the edge of the bar. She said you didn't really want me to walk you down the aisle, that you asked out of obligation. Tears stung my eyes. That's not true. I wanted you there more than anything. I've always wanted you. For once, he didn't argue. He just stood there, staring at the floor, shame written across his face. Before either of us could speak again, Jack appeared at my side. He placed a steady hand on my shoulder, his eyes fixed calmly on my father. Benjamin is looking for you, Adrian. It's almost time for the sparkler send-off. Dad straightened, his jaw tightening. So you're the one who took my place. Jack met his gaze without flinching. I didn't take anything. Adrian asked me, and I was honored to be there. Being a father isn't about titles, it's about showing up. My father opened his mouth to retort, but stopped, his face twisting with something between anger and regret. Without another word, he turned on his heel and strode out of the ballroom, leaving silence in his wake. My chest ached, but Benjamin's arm slipped around me, grounding me. Are you okay? He asked gently. I nodded, though my voice shook. I just wish he had seen the truth sooner. Jack squeezed my shoulder softly and said, Family revelations are painful, Adrian, but sometimes the truth needs to break us before it can set us free.
The ballroom still hummed with music, but after my father's abrupt exit, a strange quiet seemed to settle around me. Guests pretended not to notice, giving me space, while Benjamin tightened his arm around my waist. Don't let him ruin this, he whispered, his forehead brushing mine. This is still our day. He was right. Outside, staff had already arranged sparklers for the send-off. Friends gathered in two lines, laughing as they lit the slender sticks, sparks flying like fireflies in the night. Benjamin and I clasped hands and ran through the glowing tunnel, laughter bubbling out of me despite the ache in my chest. Cameras flashed, cheers rang out, and in that moment, I chose joy. Vanessa and my father might have stolen pieces of my past, but this was mine. Benjamin and I slipped into the waiting car, waving as the sparklers faded behind us. As the city lights blurred past, I leaned into him, breathing in the scent of cologne and champagne. We did it, he said softly. We're married. I smiled, resting my head on his shoulder, and no one can take that away. The honeymoon in Greece was everything we needed. Days spent exploring ruins older than memory, evenings dining by the sea, mornings waking tangled in each other's arms. For 2 blissful weeks, family drama felt like a distant storm, unable to touch us. But when we returned, reality was waiting. My phone blinked with 5 unheard voicemails from Dad. The first was stiff, defensive, the second uncertain. By the 5th, his voice cracked with something raw. Adrian, I don't know if you'll ever listen to this, but Vanessa admitted the truth. She's been lying to me for years about you, about everything. I don't know how I didn't see it. I am so sorry I missed your wedding. Please give me a chance to make this right. I played the message 3 times before setting the phone down, numb. Beside me, Benjamin took my hand. Do you want to call him back? I shook my head. Not yet. I need time. Weeks passed, filled with thank you notes and the sweet ordinariness of married life. Vanessa disappeared to Florida under the guise of business, sending only a perfunctory email that she was taking a break from family drama. I didn't respond. What could I say to someone who had spent years poisoning the well between me and my father? The silence felt like its own answer. Meanwhile, Jack became a fixture in our lives.
He called on Sunday evenings, his voice steady and kind. We spoke of books, art, work, and sometimes deeper things. One night, he said, "Forgiveness isn't about excusing, it's about freeing yourself. Whatever you decide about your father, Adrian, make sure it brings you peace." His words stayed with me. A month later, I finally agreed to meet Dad at a cafe halfway between Allentown and Philadelphia. He looked older, thinner, as though the truth had carved new lines into his face. He stood awkwardly as I approached, then sat heavily across from me. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Finally, he said, "Adrian, I don't deserve to be here, but thank you for coming." I stirred my coffee, buying time. "Why didn't you see it? Why didn't you see me?" His hands trembled slightly around his cup. "After your mother died, I was lost. Vanessa stepped up and I leaned on her more than I should have. It was easier to believe her than to face how much I was failing you. She became my lens to you, and I never questioned what she told me." Anger and sorrow tangled inside me. "Do you know how many times I waited for you? At concerts, at ceremonies, at my wedding?" His eyes filled with tears. "I know, and I can never give those back, but I want to try now, if you'll let me. I want to know the woman you've become, not the girl I abandoned." I studied him, the man who had been my hero once, then my ghost. Could I forgive him? Maybe not yet, but perhaps I could try. "I don't know what this will look like," I said quietly, "but I'll give you a chance." Relief flickered in his expression, fragile as glass. As we parted, he said, "Take all the time you need. I'll be here when you're ready." It wasn't closure, not yet, but it was a beginning. In the months after that difficult cafe meeting, life settled into a new rhythm. Weekly calls with my father felt awkward at first, both of us fumbling through small talk, but slowly the walls began to crumble. Sometimes the conversations turned heavier, him admitting where he had failed, me acknowledging the hurt I had carried for years. It wasn't easy, and it wasn't instant forgiveness, but it was honest, and that honesty was something we had lacked for too long. Jack remained my steady anchor. He never once spoke ill of my father, though he had every right to. Instead, he encouraged patience, reminding me that healing was a long road, not a single conversation. When Dad suggested a family dinner 3 months later, including Benjamin's parents and Jack, I hesitated, but Benjamin squeezed my hand and said, "Let's try." That night, around the dinner table, I watched my father truly see Jack for the first time. "Thank you," he said quietly after dessert, his gaze steady, "for walking Adrian down the aisle when I wasn't there. You honored her in a way I should have. I'll always be grateful." Jack simply nodded, replying, "She deserves someone by her side who believed in her. That's what being family means." My father looked down then, shame flickering across his face, but when he looked up again, there was something new in his eyes: respect. Vanessa, on the other hand, remained distant. She sent the occasional text on holidays, always vague, never touching the wounds she had created. At first, I ached for reconciliation, but in time, I accepted that not all relationships can be saved. And maybe that was okay. By Thanksgiving, Benjamin and I hosted our first holiday dinner. The table was full. His parents, Jack, my father, cousin Thomas, and close friends who had become like family. The empty chair where Vanessa should have been was noticeable, but it no longer overshadowed the joy in the room. When it was my father's turn to share what he was thankful for, his voice cracked. "Second chances," he said simply, "and for a daughter whose grace humbles me every day." Jack's turn followed. He smiled at me, his eyes warm. I'm thankful for the reminder that family is chosen as much as it is given. Adrian, you inspire me. Tears blurred my vision, but they were tears of healing. On our 1 year anniversary, Benjamin and I held a small dinner party with our closest circle. Jack raised his glass for a toast. 1 year ago, I had the privilege of walking Adrian down the aisle, a moment born from pain but transformed into one of the greatest honors of my life. Adrian and Benjamin, may your marriage continue to grow strong, and may you always remember that true family shows up, even when it's difficult. His words settled deep in my heart. Later that night, as I lay in Benjamin's arms, I thought about the journey of the past year. The betrayal, the lies, the heartbreak, but also the courage, the love, and the unexpected healing. I realized that forgiveness didn't mean excusing the harm my father or sister had caused. It meant freeing myself from resentment, choosing to live in peace, and building boundaries that protected my heart. I had learned that a father who walks you down the aisle should be someone who has walked beside you through life, not just in title, but in action. Sometimes that's your parent by blood, and sometimes it's someone who steps in with love when you need them most. My wedding day was not the perfect picture I had once dreamed of, but it was real, and in that reality, I found strength, family, and a deeper understanding of love. As I share this with you now, I want to ask, have you ever had someone unexpected step in for you when family let you down? Or have you been the person who showed up when someone else needed it most? Share your story in the comments. I would love to hear it. If this story touched you, hit the like button and subscribe for more tales of family, forgiveness, and finding your own path. And remember this, sometimes the most beautiful families are not the ones we're born into, but the ones we choose, day after day, with love and with grace.